Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, we're not going to have any fun at all. Welcome to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here. Guys, look, I really want to take a moment. Guys, this is very important. I've got royalty here. The most popular people in real estate right now, Suzy and Michael. There's nobody hotter on the planet than Suzy and Michael. Me and Adam talk about this all the time. I'm like, these people are everywhere. You think Austin's everywhere? Y'all are everywhere. So excited to have y'all on. We have Suzy and Michael. Me and Michael just met 5 seconds ago, but this is perfect. Me and Suzy are best friends already, so we're good. But what I like to do with my guests is kind of let them start their story, and then we'll kind of go from there. So why don't you start from where you want? And I'm sure Suzy will do most of the talking, but it's cool.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, I don't want to talk anymore. So I'll start. So Michael and I currently live all the way across the pond in Cambridge, England. And to just let everybody know why we're here. So Michael is active duty Air Force, getting his PhD at the University of Cambridge. I'm currently a program manager over here for a biotech company, but going real estate full time.
Soon.
Yes. Oh yeah, soon. Sorry, I should have added that part. But let's see. Like before here, we lived in Colorado. Michael was teaching at the Air Force Academy. I was in accounting and recently had gotten my MBA, and just wanted to spice our life up a bit. And COVID happened to do that. So we started real estate. That's us.
Well, just started that real estate thing. So you both have professions, you both worked for a while. It's that you like what you do, but what was it about real estate that kind of sparked the interest with kind of changing the way that you were thinking about your future?
No, absolutely. That's a great question. Okay. So like during the first lockdown over here, it was a little over 100 days, which in itself was a really long time. And then we had a second one, and then we had a third one. But about a month or so in the first one, like Michael and I had a lot of time together, like, because what it was, okay, everybody goes home. If nobody's working in the office, you get to go outside once a day to work out or go to the grocery store or go to the pharmacy. And during that time, like Michael and I really just enjoyed the one-on-one time. And that's like when you learn about real estate and it's all about like you get to control your time, you get to live your life how you want to. That's immediately what it was, right? Because like right now we don't get to do that, right? Like I'm still in a 9-to-5. Michael has to go to school, and eventually, he's in the Air Force. So, he has a whole entire career. Yeah, career. And so but real estate gives us the opportunity to go back and spend that time with each other. And we can do that all day together. And then we can actually pursue passions or do things that give us energy in life. But that's where real estate all comes in, because with that, we have options right now. I'm helping achieve somebody else's goal. Michael is serving this country. And with that, there is no me. Like, where does the me time come in? Nobody, my employer doesn't care. Michael's employer definitely, they care sometimes, I guess, but usually not all the time. And that's how it all fits together.
One of the things we talked about when we did an episode of the other podcast about work-life balance, which is bullshit. It doesn't exist. And what you're actually searching for is control of time balance, meaning control of your schedule, control of what you're doing. And people act like they're investing to invest, but what you're doing is you're putting a chit down to buy back your freedom at said date when you get to this point and this point and this point. And so when you decided to jump off in real estate, you decided to maybe control your future more, because there's a million options out there. There's wholesaling, there's, flipping, everything. what could you do when you're trying to buy real estate in the States and you're over in, London? What came to mind?
So initially, like when we first started getting into it, we were directed towards like bigger pockets, which then is kind of like, they focus, well, some of their things are like all single family, like just take action, buy a house and whatever, like single family, like it's low risk, like because you're doing it yourself, stuff like that. So initially, and we attended a conference early on as well that talked about all the different flavors of real estate, like we were just mentioning, like wholesaling, flipping, house hacking, whatever, multifamily self-storage, all the different flavors, right? And each one of those has like its own personality as well, right? And so you have to kind of find something that fits your personality. And so initially we had a false start in single family. And what I mean by false start is we set up a long distance real estate investing team. We got a property management company, a realtor, a home inspector, several contractors all lined up in this one Midwest city. And then we had 2 doors under contract. And then the unthinkable happened. An inland hurricane came through, took out 60% of the trees. The city was without power for several weeks, like 6 or 7 weeks. And come to find out, like obviously the 2 properties or 2 doors we had under contract fell out of escrow because they needed contractor bids because we were going to rehab them. And the contractors were more focused on rebuilding the city, obviously, than actually doing any kind of repair work on somebody's rental property. And so after those properties fell out of escrow, we kind of took a step back and we're like, where are we going to go? Are we going to wait until the city is going to rebuild itself, which could take upwards of a year, 9 months, 12 months, whatever. We have no idea how long it's going to take. Or do we pivot into something else? Do we set up this team somewhere in another city, or do we pivot to another, flavor of real estate, if you will? And so we looked at our 5-year goals, and one of our 5-year goals is to pivot into multifamily slowly. We're going to let's do single family for a while, kind of get our feet wet in real estate investing, and then go into multifamily after that slowly. So we decided, hey, let's just pivot directly into multifamily now. Other people are doing it. But what really drove us to do that is because this conference that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation was for multifamily. Whitney Sewell is there, and he discussed to us, or told me specifically, it was like, Michael, you don't have to start with single family. You can start with multifamily. So that planted a seed in the back of my mind. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really water that seed, and that seed didn't really grow into a plant or an idea until we were in this hard spot, right? Like we came against this wall. We didn't know what we were going to do, and we decided to pivot, to move around the wall, and go through it, and decided to just go head straight into multifamily. But that's how we got to that. So it's a long answer to your question.
No, it's great. I mean, the way she described you, I expected that type of answer, so we're good. So, no, but this is something that's super important, right? Is that ultimately, I think we're too focused on what we think we're supposed to do instead of actually looking at our goals, meaning as a couple or as a person, looking at our goals and saying, well, what's going to get me there when? And really the only thing I need to get over is my own limiting beliefs or my own fears that I can do it. Right. Mm-hmm. And then once you do it, then you're like, well, this wasn't that bad. And then you're like that much farther ahead. And so I asked somebody, I said, look, if you went and bought a sixplex, right, just for grins, just use a number, and you were to say, oh, I bought a sixplex. Well, wow, you sped up your things like 2 years, like that's quick, and then what if the sixplex turned into 12plex? Well, y'all didn't even do that. Y'all decided to go a different route and snag into an 88 unit. So how did you find the deal?
Yeah. So I just want to touch on something real quick that
Sure.
You mentioned, Austin. And that was, you start doing these things and you're like, oh, that was easy. And then you start doing bigger and bigger and bigger, right? It's like this mindset shift that keeps shifting up and up. But one of the things we started doing is like, we pivoted straight in. We're like, let's do multifamily. We jumped into all these networking events. We're like, oh, we can do something like 10 to 20 units. We'll look for something like that. And then we started getting these spaces where these people were talking about, buying these 100-unit properties and things like, wait, hang on a second. We're just like them. If they can do it, we can definitely do it. Right.
Yeah.
And so we're like, the first property we actually put an LOI on was 126 units. And after that, I was like, oh, now we can just do anything 100 units plus. We're not looking for anything else, right? So that's kind of, our criteria kept growing. And now we've settled into, around 100. We want something that can support on-site manager and on-site maintenance, right? But
well, I was going to add too, like even for me, right? Like I have only lived in apartments. Like even now we're renting. I've actually never even owned a home. So like some people even get stuck there. Like, oh, I've never owned a home, so that should be my first step. Or because like our home is like our safe space where it's comfortable, then like a single family home or a duplex also feels comfortable, but like you don't have to be in either of those spaces. Like you can go bigger, like you said, like just connect it to your goals or what brings you energy. Because even for us, right, a huge thing is that like we wanted an asset that could handle like 9 to 5 Monday through Friday property management. We want to be working on the business, not in the business. So the smaller we got, we would be working in the business more, right? Because whatever they're not doing on those off days, we'll have to cover that. We can't, like, who's going to be there? Yes, we have a boots on the ground, but I mean, like, we're all involved in this. Like, this is a team sport. And so like, even remembering that like it is a team sport. So you don't have to just choose comfort, which would be a single family or a duplex or even, a triplex, whatever that may be.
So when I met my friend now and my mentor, he said, listen, I'm very busy. He said, I like you a lot. He said, I got 15 minutes. Like, that's all I got. If you want this meeting, I said, yes. So I bought a plane ticket. I flew across the country to California, and I sat down and had coffee with him at like 8 a.m. in the morning. And he said something to me that changed my life forever. And this was like right when I was getting into masterminds or anything like that. And I sat across from him. He said, within 2 minutes of the conversation, he looked me dead in the face. And he said, you and I are the same person. We can do the same exact things. I just got started before you with surrounded by better people. That's it.
Yeah.
And in that moment, everybody in my life came down off the pedestal and I became the pedestal. And so it's the same thing that you said, is that I met these people and I'm like, dude, here's the deal. I met a lot of millionaires that have multiple businesses that are really dumb. So I'm like, oh shit, I can do this. Right. And I met plenty of people that have 1,000 units that can't really, do anything. So it's funny that you correlated that. You're like, whoa, like we got this. Right. And then, so the question is, because you took the chance, because you got that first one, now we're talking about 188 units and we're talking about more and stuff like that. And so it's amazing how fast. I would imagine that after you close this next one, you got to rewrite your goals, if I'm not mistaken, probably. Right? But that's a good thing though. It's like losing weight and your clothes not being able to fit.
Yeah,
that's true.
That's a good problem to have. Yeah. So you put the LOI on the 126. Obviously, you didn't get that. Then how did you get the first one, the 88 unit?
Yeah. So going back to that, Suzy kind of touched on it. So when we initially started, going into the multifamily space, started posting about it everywhere. We actually met one of my classmates from college who was, interested in multifamily as well. He was in one of the markets that we were interested in. And so once we kind of established our boots on the ground, we're like, okay, these are our markets. We were just heavily focused on those markets. And then that's how we met one of the brokers who actually sent us the 126 unit first. And we looked at it. We didn't get it just because everything thankfully we didn't get that property. But because it was our first one, obviously. So anyways, there's probably plenty of mistakes that we made, and I haven't looked at it since. But anyways, the same broker, because he knew of our team and that we were serious buyers and things like that, he sent us this other property as well. And then also we had a mentor. We can talk more about that here in a second. This organic mentor that we met, who's part of our team, who also closed additional deals with the broker that sent us this 88 unit. And so when we submitted an LOI on that, initially, I'll say back up 2 steps. When we first got this property, it was, August of last year, and it wasn't at where we wanted it to be. It wasn't stabilized or anything like that. However, when we finally got the initial, the preliminary income on October of last year, 2020, it was starting to be stabilized. It was 2 months stabilized. Everybody else saw that as well. And then everybody submitted an LOI. So, but because we had the reputation that we did, so many allies, and we had somebody on our team, our mentor, who's closed deals with this broker before, he was able to communicate that to the seller and say, hey, these guys can close. It's a very strong offer. Here you go. And so we were able to get that property under contract.
Okay, so cool. You sent a little piece of paper through email where your signature was on it, and like they said, yeah, we're gonna accept yours. And then it's holy crap. We got to pay for this thing. What's going on? So where, after you ran around and you got excited, what were the next steps to close that deal?
So much paperwork. Like my mind is blown. It's true. Nobody tells you how much paperwork you have to do. Like it is crazy, right? So I mean, like even with the paperwork though, right? Like we have to raise capital, and raising capital is not easy. We were doing 20 to 25 investor calls a week, like beforehand and even during. All we did was spend time on Zoom, right? Because like I think one person, or we heard it and it made sense when they said it. So it clicked, like you needed to start raising capital yesterday. We're like, okay, well, we got to put the jetpack on then, like there's no choice. And if we want to go into the next acquisition fully loaded, we need to keep the jetpack on. So it was just call after call after call. But like the coolest part about the calls though, was that we quickly found out, like when we were asking people, why are you investing in real estate? Like we really touched heartstrings. And like, that's when the conversations no longer were like, wow, when are these ever going to end? I mean, like granted, you have some people who it's like pulling teeth because they just say like, for myself, like, can we go
get rich?
Yeah. Can we go, can we kind of go deeper into that? But yeah, I mean, it was a whole lot of talking on the phone, a whole lot of paperwork, like making sure.
Where did you get the list of people that you were calling?
Oh, that's fun. So we found out very quickly it was not our friends and family at all.
Okay, I was going to ask that question because that's the thing I keep hearing over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish we had rich friends.
Yeah, I do too, because it would have been so much easier. But
we do now.
There you go.
Awesome.
We went to so many meetups and so many conferences, and we snipped the screen when we could see everybody's name, and we reached out on LinkedIn and said, hey, like we're attending the same conference. Like, what's your favorite thing about the conference? Who's your favorite speaker? What did you learn the most about this? And gradually you also get into what are your real estate investing goals? Because
a lot of active investors still want to be passive, right? Like they have active income that they, want to save taxes on by throwing in a syndication, things like that.
Well, I mean, and you also have people who are into Airbnbs, are into notes investing, but like they don't get the same tax benefits as you would in a syndication, so like that's a huge thing. We've met a lot of people who were like, oh, well, I attended this multifamily event because, like I'm in notes and single family, and I just want to receive all the great things you do, but I want to stay in this lane and I'm just going to trust you in yours. I'm like, that's totally fine. I can do that. I can do this with you, But like, it's the biggest shift actually too was, because this is all new. We're on Zoom, which is already new for some people, but now we're talking to like even more strangers at the beginning. And it's just like getting over that. And if like somebody doesn't want to invest or they never open your email, just like not taking it personally, right? Because that's like what can drive you as well. Like, oh, it's totally okay because I have more people to talk to. I mean, this is almost what this whole entire space is about. Like, you want to be with the best operators who like you trust and who you align your goals with. And that's not going to be every single person that you talk to. Not everybody is going to like our thesis. Not everybody may not particularly like you, but it's like moving past that of like just not taking stuff personal, because you don't need to. Like, if people say like, yes, they'll invest and they never do, just like move on. You'll find somebody who aligns with you, and that relationship will be so much better for you and your soul and your business.
I can equate this to my coaching business. I've had a lot of people that aren't comfortable with radical honesty, and they act like they want accountability, but they don't really want accountability. And maybe in the beginning, I took them on because it was a lot of money or there's scarcity of clients. And you get about 2-3 weeks in and you're like, no, that doesn't work. Like, this feels really uncomfortable. And then you get the people that 100% align with you, and it feels like they're your best friend and it's so easy, and you can go a year with talking to them every week and it's not a big deal, right? And money raising is kind of the same way, is that a lot of people are going to say, well, they've never done anything, I'm not going to give them money. And then you do a couple things and then they're like, oh, well, now we're going to give them money. So I think a lot of it comes full circle. And I think that the number one thing that you can't have is attachment to what they're going through, because like maybe their money's tied up somewhere else right now. Maybe it is. But I think the number one thing that everybody needs to get over, and this is the number one thing, because we're going to go out and buy businesses, is that to think that people don't have money sitting around. That's one thing I've realized, is that there's a lot of people out there that have money saved up that you wouldn't even think about it. And you need to like create that abundant mentality. And so when you got into your first money raise, I mean, were you oversubscribed, just subscribed enough? Like how did that go for you? And how long did you have to do it?
We gave ourselves 5 weeks, I think it was, like from the time of the webinar until we closed. It was like just shy of 5 weeks, I believe. But do you want to talk more about it?
No,
it's fun.
You.
So we learned several different things about the capital raising. So number one, here's some mistakes we made. Number one, we had the webinar on a Thursday night. What are people doing after they watch a webinar on Thursday night? Probably going to eat dinner with their family, and then probably going to bed and getting ready for Friday or getting ready for the weekend. What are they doing on Friday? Hey, they're not thinking about your deal. They're thinking about the weekend, right? And what are they doing on the weekend? Definitely not thinking about your deal. They're definitely hanging out with their family and doing the things that they want to do, right? And so we made a couple of mistakes. So we had to raise like 1.75 million on this first deal. And so after the webinar, we had like $1 million raised, and we're like, cool. Like right after like 24 hours, we're like, cool. This is going to be a breeze. We got it all figured out. We were counting the money coming in. We're good to go. And then, Saturday comes, nothing. Sunday comes, nothing. Monday, still crickets. And then during this time,
hard tack session.
Suzy and I are not sleeping the entire time, right? Because we're like, oh my God, we have to find $750,000 somewhere.
Our life is over. Our dreams are crushed. Yeah. Nobody's going to work with us if we can't raise capital. What do you do? Yeah. That's what it felt like.
And so we literally we weren't sleeping. And it was really horrible experience. But then Tuesday rolled around, Wednesday, money started coming in, Thursday, Friday, and we had it all raised in like 2 weeks. But the first couple of days, first 6 days or whatever, we were not sleeping very well. And then our mentor was like, we finally were like, oh, let's get on the phone with our mentor and chat with him. He's like, oh, it's fine. This happens all the time. Like, you'll be fine. I was like, oh, somebody who's done it before multiple times, is a relief, like, why didn't we talk to you like on day 2,
right? Yeah.
Instead of not sleeping for a week and then deciding to talk to you. But, yeah, he's like, oh, you're totally fine. I think we didn't want to talk to him because I was like, I'm kind of embarrassed. Like I wanted to be able to raise money faster, and I didn't want to tell him. But
then it also went to it felt like with some individuals, we even had to rehab the conversation, right? So questions that were definitely answered during the webinar or sent out in an email. It's like, okay, well, they want to hop on the call and ask the questions again, because that extra sense of security. And even at that point too, though, you have to try to recognize your nonverbal cues, how you're sounding, because you never again want to sound like you're in a scarcity mindset, right? You want to sound like you're in an abundance mindset, oh yes, this is a great opportunity. If you're not in it, then there'll be another one, instead of I really, inside, if you're thinking I really want your money because I want to close, your voice completely changes, you know what I mean? And so it's even getting past that, which is crazy in itself, because you have never experienced the emotions before. And it's just, it's navigating a whole new you.
So what we've done now, and what we did for the second one, was now we have the webinars on Tuesdays and in the afternoon. So they have the rest of the day to, now that's fresh in their mind. They can do a little research if they need to. They can log into our investor portal and fund it and things like that. So this next deal that we just closed on, we were able to raise the funds within 24 hours. So, but we also were going, a little bit before the webinar, making sure that people had any questions and things like that. So,
and I think it has a lot to do with your team too. So many people at the beginning feel as if like you might have to stay with that team for every single deal afterwards, but you don't. And yes, those conversations can be difficult to have, but like if you know what your goals are, you have to align yourself with people who can also help you achieve those, right? You don't stay with a group of people just because you're with them from the beginning. Like if you are not going to grow, then why are you in this? Because that feeling in itself will be way more stressful than the conversation of like, hey, I don't think our goals are aligning for this next one. Like, let's chat after this. You know what I mean? Like, because that whole sense of relief is a thing in itself.
Well, as you said something, I can't get out of my head, navigating the whole new you. I think that should be the motto every morning when you wake up. Because I think every day, if you're growing and you're doing things that are outside your comfort zone, I think you're stepping into new realms, you're stepping into new conversations, new activities that are going to create new opportunities, but also push you to be better than you were yesterday. Right. And y'all, I don't care how you feel, because y'all are making it sound like it was horrific, but 24 hours and 2 weeks to raise north of 4 million. What would you equate that to? Because a lot of people who would, anybody that's listening right now is going to tell you there's no chance I could do that. I already know what they're saying in their head. So what would you equate that to? Like, would you equate it to your networking you've done previous? Would you equate it to being very clear on who you are as people and the deal was good? Like, what would you equate getting it done in a short amount of time?
Tenacity and showing up consistent, like being consistent.
Yeah.
Like
so
every single day.
Yeah. So even with us being over here, right? Like showing up at the meetups every week, showing up at the conferences. And I don't want to say like being heard, because that sounds like weird, but like I'd reach out to people at the meetups and at the conferences and say like, hey, it's really great to see you here, which is true, but like another touch point, right? You know, like, and that's what it is. I mean, as like we all want to be seen and heard. So why, if I do, like, why wouldn't I just give that? It's so easy, you know, those like, that it takes me 10 seconds to type out. So why would I not?
Suzy, remind me 1 second what you do for a living again. Remind me one more time.
Oh, so I'm in program management.
But she has a degrees in anthropology and communications. So
I love humans.
Well, my girlfriend, my girlfriend really wants to hang out with anthropologists. So this is great. She's like, where are my geologists and anthropologists? But the reason I say that is because you said something there that not enough people talk about. And so one of the things I do is, and I don't have it written down or anything, but let's say I haven't talked to you in like 3 months, let's just say, a friend or a real estate investor, is I'll shoot him a text. Be like, man, I hope everything's going all right. I hope you're doing good. If there's anything you need, let me know. Or like, hey, I saw you close on that. Like, I'm seeing everything. Doesn't mean I comment on everything, but I see everything, right? And a lot of the times they'll go, man, I needed that. Thank you. And it's so funny that you say that, because you're basically there's a thing out there, right? My friend is a marketing director, and he says, like, if they don't see your logo, or they don't see your face, or they don't see a video from you in 2 weeks, you're not top of mind. And so are you top of mind? There's only so many things that could be top of mind. You and I are the same way. There's pure, genuine. I'm really asking if you're okay, but it also serves multiple functions within your business as well too.
Absolutely. So we did a podcast recording with someone, her name's Susan Elliott, but in it, like, she had me thinking, like, even about myself differently, right? So like this whole time, like even today, right, I did it. Oh, I've gotten an MBA. Oh, I'm a program manager. But then just now, right, like my undergrad is in anthropology and communication studies. And like, for me, that actually is going further because of the people aspect, right? Like, even when it comes to residents and those families, like, I want them to succeed. Like, I have read way too many books, done way too many case studies, like on communities. Like, I know how they can thrive and grow, like talking to investors, like all of that is so huge. But for some reason, we're still all just talking about like MBAs. And I'm like, okay, yes, I really loved my finance course, but like, if we don't have residents, we don't have, our business plan is shot for everything.
And if we don't have an apartment that's managed by good people that care, then we don't have a community, right? Yeah. And it's one of those things where this is this really simple statement, but it's very true. If you're an Airbnb host, or you're a single family investor, or you're an apartment investor, or you're a mobile home investor, I need you to remember this one thing. You're a fucking landlord. like people live in a place where they raise their kids. These are memories.
Yeah.
So you're not just buying a building, you're not just buying a hotel, you're not just buying an Airbnb, you're creating an experience, whether it be an apartment. I think some people get lost in that and understand that, there's investors that need to be pleased. There's property managers that are getting money off this. There's people that need a safe place to live, right? And we need to get back to the days of realizing that it's more than just a dollar, and create kind of a community per se, whether that be in our company or with our investors or something like that. Because once you, and I think you've seen it very clearly, is once you can be counted on and once you can close, well, then the deals just start running your way, especially in the multifamily space, right? Have you already seen that?
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Now I don't have to call a broker for deals anymore. They just send them,
Yeah. And now you're like standing up on your ivory tower and you're like, this is too small. No, I'm just kidding. But so what, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I want to kind of touch on, Austin, that you mentioned was making sure that you have the property management company that is there, because you're creating an experience for your residents, right? So one thing that Suzy and I are huge on, and before we even started looking at properties, really, we really took the time to identify what property manager would be managing these properties. And so we are so sold on Tulsa, Oklahoma right now, because we are so sold on our property management company.
Okay.
She and her team are amazing, and they make our job as asset managers so easy. And hearing other people's stories with their property management companies is horror stories, man, I'm glad we don't have these issues. So with that being said, we will never submit an LOI or anything on a property without running it through our property management company, run the business plan through them, say, hey, will this work in this specific submarket? Will this work in this market in general, right? And so we heavily rely on them because they are such an integral part of our team, and they align so well with our values and our whole thing about return on impact. They are so heavily focused on the residents and taking care of them first, that it's just incredible. And we're really glad that we're aligned with them. That being said, if we ever wanted to switch markets, we will never switch markets unless we identify the same type of property management company there before we even start getting deals or reaching out to brokers or anything like that.
Well, the good news is you've already identified the property management, so we're good. my business partners manage 1,200 doors in Kansas City, so we're about to launch in Texas. So, and they specialize in multifamily value add. So they're all structural engineers. So you'll get along real well. But we're really right, because I'm just like y'all. We'll see if I ever actually buy a property that I live in that market. I'll be very curious to see if that ever actually happens to me, because I love to travel, right? And one of the things when I met Suzy, one of the things that we get along with so well, and you said it right there in that statement, is return on impact. That's my why. It's the only thing I care about. It's literally nothing else matters. You cannot beat me, because I literally can go all day, because if I change one person's life today, or change one idea, or helped one person move forward, or they're a better husband, they're a better father, I'm good. I'm good. That's the only currency I need. So really talk to me about what that means to y'all, and how this is such a focus in your business.
Absolutely. So what it means to us is serving beyond our four walls. So, you say it great as well, just one person. So if you think about it, there are almost 8 billion people on this earth. And even if half of us, even not even half, if 25% of us went towards just trying to positively impact one person by 1% even every day, the world could do great things. We would all be out trying to strive to do great things. But so with Michael and I just as a, partnership, couple, spouse, whatever, all of the above, He has been a professor, will be professor again. So like education is important to him. For me, I've been a coach and a mentor. So like our whole thing is how can we continue to provide education, because that's what we love, right? That's why we put out content. Like that's why we're content creators, because you can never give enough education to the world. But how can we do that outside of a traditional classroom? Because that's just a whole different sphere in itself. And so what we would love to do is that once Michael can like retire from the Air Force, is we want to go live all over the world and live in these different communities and see how we can serve them best. And if we can build a school in that community, then we will. But like even beyond that, like,
well, your first investors right here. It's done.
no,
I'll raise the fund for it. Yes,
That's awesome.
I'm dead serious. Not even, you literally are doing exactly what I want to do. So yes.
Yeah, because like basic education solves so many problems. And like,
well, you said no, you said it perfectly there. Basic education.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, basic.
I was going to add to that, like when we get into these communities, like so the basic education is not the traditional Western education, right? Like it's whatever is needed for that specific developing country, right? Like, and so many people think, oh, let's just shove like Western education down these throats of these people. And they don't need that. They need like just basic skills and things like that. And that would just change so many issues with poverty, so many issues with like population control and stuff like that. So,
you know what's interesting as I dive into this week I unpacked this conversation for 17 hours, but I'll try to sum it up. So when the riots started happening last year, and I started thinking about like, how can I, regardless of my coaching and just like overall, I've talked to, investors from all over the country, and thought to myself, like, how do we like really impact? Well, it starts in middle school, high school, and elementary, right? And then, but what I realized as I did a little digging is it's not so much that they don't want to learn, it's they don't even know. The options aren't even there. Yeah. Like they don't even know what a whole life insurance policy is. They don't know how to get a mortgage. They don't know how to properly use a credit card. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, so like my buddy, he manages like $5 billion for UT, and he's from Venezuela. And like him and I's dream is to create like a middle school, high school program for kids, like financial literacy, because it wasn't until I worked private equity that I realized I had no idea how money actually worked until you work private equity and you're like inside of it. And so when you say like, we want to teach you basic skills, it's like entrepreneurship, like how does money work? Like, how do you build something for yourself? Like, and it's like, we take for granted that we have AC and a roof and everything. And it's like, they just need the option of impact. And if you give them that and you focus it, one of the things that I dream about, and I'm sure y'all are the same way, is like, I've got like a 6 to 9 year plan to go as hard in the paint as I can with as many businesses and as many investments as I can. And then at 50 years old, this entire ship is going to flip 180 degrees, and it's going to be for charity.
Yeah,
100%. Like that is like my back half of my life for 30 years. Now, granted, I'll probably still coach and I'll still run businesses, but majority of the time is going to be all towards helping, drug addicts, alcohol, kids. Like my dream is to start a fund that's invested in middle school, high school businesses. Like you got an idea, let's go like turn it into something. You're 13, you're making, $40 million. I don't know, they're making the 8 million on slime, right? I mean, those are the things that excite me, because that's a life worth living, opposed to how many units I have. Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. And even right now, like in the school system, right, you go in and it's almost like they just try to numb you over and over and over. But like even with the bells and everything, it's like factory work, like one in, one out, one in, one out. And like your personality can't overshine, like even when on report cards, right? Like Suzy talks too much. It's like, no, I'm just really fun. Can we just put it that way? What do you mean I talk too much? Like... But then at the same time, the students that are too quiet, like, are looked down upon as well. It's like, can we just all have our own personalities? Like, where did that go? Where did our creativity go?
So everything that they said on your report card, don't you agree that everybody champions you for it now?
Oh yeah.
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 Well, I just started business coaching, right? And she helped me
Okay.
uncover.
You're business coaching. Or
Yeah. Under
okay.
no, I don't coach
He's being
myself.
coached.
I'm being coached.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
being coached. Okay.
Yeah, I'm being coached. So like, but my coach helped me unlock like this whole time. I thought like I had ADHD, and I do technically. It's been like um, like I've been given medication
Diagnosed.
for it, diagnosed. It's been diagnosed. I've been given medication for it, right? So, but what she's like, no. She's like, everything in the world, like the whole education system is based on this linear scale, right? Like A happens, then B happens, then C happens, then D happens, right? Like, and they want you to fit in that box to be
Mhm.
linear and like
Mhm.
have to do A before B and whatever, right? She's like, all these people like yourself, you have what's called a multiplier mind, right? Like, which is like this whole concept of ADD, right? Like, you should be able to unleash that and use it because it's beautiful, and that's where all my creativity comes from. When we're having this conversation right now, Austin, like I'm thinking about like 4 other things that I'm thinking, because you said we'll chat afterwards, but like that's my multiplier mind, right? Like it's going everywhere, and I'm not thinking in a linear sense, and like I can't box myself in there. And so like she's unleashed that for me and said like, hey, quit trying to time block things, quit trying to do this because it's not working for you. It doesn't match your personality. So she gave me the permission to do that. And now I'm just like letting myself run free. And now I'm having so many more creative thoughts because I'm like, this is just me. And I'm just going to write down this and write down that. And I love it now.
I might need to stop this podcast because I'm the same person. And hold on. So at the end of the day, tell me if this doesn't resonate with you. When I know that I'm not right, like me, I'm not right, is when I don't have creative thoughts. When I'm trying to like just do. I said something today to my client. He didn't believe me, but I'm going to say it again and I'm going to champion it. Doing creates $1,000 ideas. Thinking creates $1 million ideas.
I love it. Yeah.
It's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? Are you, I just finished Naval and the Rockies book and it changed my entire life. I'm probably read it again, probably next week. And he's just like, nobody spends any time being creative. Nobody thinks their way out of the thing because we're taught, right? Perfect example. Now we have to do it on a podcast because we have to be entertaining. But in society that we're in now, if I ask you a question, you have to have an answer within 2.5 seconds. Like nobody's allowed to think. Nobody's allowed to take a moment. You know what? Let me think about that. Let me answer you properly. No. You have to answer me now. And we don't then you're just playing a game of who's got the right answer instead of the actual answer, which is let me take some time about it. Let me think about it. Right. And so when you close on the properties and you do this, what spurred the idea of doing the podcast if you didn't have enough going on already?
I mean, what spurred it was that like we knew we wanted to do one, like, because this is where we get energy from. And then we were actually just on someone's podcast one day and he's like, when are you going to have it out? And I was like, June 1st. Maybe like that's what we're going to do. And then since then it was just like, go. But we found out because like we thought podcasts were scary at the beginning, right? And then we just decided to get on them. And then once we got on them, it was like, no way, we can do this. Like we get to have great conversations like this. We get to like, even during these, so many more ideas come up and you leave the podcast, with more ideas. And that's phenomenal within itself. Like, because we aren't having conversations like this all the time with our like 30-minute intro calls. Like we're not getting this deep. And that's the coolest part about podcasts. Because I get an hour with you and it's phenomenal. Yeah. Right? Like, and that's I don't know, that's what it was. But with the podcast too, we kept hearing so many phenomenal stories, but people aren't talking about those stories. I'm like, I want the world to know that like impact comes in so many shapes and sizes. Like, because then people might have the same drive and energy that we do to leave our 9 to 5. Because that's what it is, right? People are like, oh, I can't do that. No, you can. If people are going and building orphanages in Belize, and if like people in the military are leaving like these cush positions, if people are just building homes for like homeless veterans, you can do it too. You know, like your idea of what impact is also valid and phenomenal. And I promise you, like, you'll find strength in doing it. You just have to hear other people's stories. And so like that was a huge driver. We just needed more people to know how cool real estate investing is. But I mean, just like building your own business, right? Because within your own business, it doesn't have to be real estate investing, but like with your businesses, like that impact in itself is huge. And more people just need to talk about it. We're not talking about it. We're talking about deals. And like, yes, deals are cool, but like, what are we doing after the deals? Like, what is really driving our energy? And that's why the podcast was born.
Mm-hmm. And the real estate community on it, I'll keep my mind to myself, but on the real estate community as a whole, for me is a little myopic because they're only talking about the same thing. Like I'm in the business of creating jobs, which in turn is going to create impact, which is going to in turn you take that money and is going to be able to like, the joke with me is like, I just want to make it so I can give it all away. Like, I mean, half the fun is like going to get it and then pushing myself to see who I'm going to become in the process. Right. And so what would be your advice, you and Michael, to anybody out there who's listening to this, who's maybe not chasing their dreams or maybe thinking I could never buy an 88 unit or I could never, have 188 units? What would you tell them?
You were born to make an impact. Like, why other reason were you born? Like, you and yourself are phenomenal. I mean, but that's just me.
And you are the one who can give yourself permission to do it, right? So like you are your biggest limiting belief, if you will. And so like what I would suggest is if you want to do something like we've done, like hop in those rooms, those networking rooms, meet those people who are doing the exact same thing that you want to do. And I promise you'll see things in other people who are doing it. And you're like, oh, I'm just like that person. Right. And if he or she can do it, then I can definitely do it. Right. Mm-hmm. You'll see things like that. Just surrounding yourself with those people. And also by surrounding yourself with those people is obviously going to elevate everything else in your life as well.
I mean, and even asking yourself, like, am I living my best life? Majority of the people who ask themselves that will say no if they're being honest. Mm-hmm. So like, why? Why? What is the point then?
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's one of these, actually, my friend told me it was like, I've used it like 16 times, like a yoga exercise. And she said like, hey, I want you to write 3 people's name that you look up to. And I want you to write 10 qualities that they have. And so they wrote the 10 qualities. And she goes, I want you to cross all their names, the 3 names out. And I want you to write your name over their names, because the only way that you would be able to see those qualities in that person is if you had them inside of you.
Oh man, I love it. I'm going to do that today.
And when I heard that, I was like, ooh, that's true. Right. And so for everybody that's listening out there, my question is simple as this. What's your excuse? Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to tell you it doesn't fucking matter. And if you think it matters, come call me and I'll tell you it really doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, this world needs you to create an impact. This world needs you to step out there. This world needs you to step into your gifts, whether that's a podcast, whether that's whatever it is, it doesn't matter what it is. It could be on a small scale, big scale, medium scale, but we need you to go do it because we need people to run with that care about impact the way that we do. So then we can create this huge movement of ripple effect of impact. So if people want to find out about the podcast, your journey, how would they do all that stuff?
Yeah, the best way, Austin, is just to go to adventurousrei.com/info. And there's a landing page with all of our links. So you can read more about Return on Impact. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. You can...
all the flavors.
Yeah, you can find our YouTube channel and our podcast all on that landing page there.
Mm-hmm. See, guys, what she did there, that's a couple, is she took a word that he used earlier in the podcast and she associated it with it. So you had an attachment to it. Sorry, I'm just giving you a little behind the scenes psychology of a partnership right there. That's a solid partnership. Guys, if you... What's that? Yeah. Guys, if you like this episode, make sure you send it out to your friends and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.